We start in the Gulf region. Saudi Arabia has rejected a U.S. intelligence report claiming Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had approved the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. The Saudi Foreign Ministry described the assessment as negative, false and unacceptable. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has announced visa restrictions on 76 Saudis, and they were reportedly involved in harassing activists and journalists. A sanctions list from the U.S. Treasury Department covered a former Saudi senior intelligence official and an elite unit, but the Crown Prince has been spared from any sanctions. Nick Harper has more.
The new Biden administration making it very clear that they believe the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was behind and orchestrated the killing of Jamal Khashoggi back in 2018. This report was put together by the CIA. It was available a year ago under the Trump administration, but the Trump administration decided not to make it public. The Biden administration deciding that they want to make it public, they want to put that information out there into the public sphere. Released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the report stating we assess that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved an operation in Istanbul, Turkey to capture and kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. They also say that the Crown Prince had absolute control of Saudi Arabia's security and intelligence agencies, and therefore they're saying it is highly unlikely that an operation of this kind would have been planned, even carried out, without the Crown Prince's authorization. Of course, the Biden administration making it clear that they want to take Saudi Arabia to task when it comes to human rights. They have a very fine line to walk because the kingdom is the United States' biggest ally in the Middle East. But here is the Biden administration saying that human rights must come first. This report coming the day after that phone call between President Biden and King Salman of Saudi Arabia. We're told from a White House readout of that call that Biden affirmed the importance the United States places on human rights and the rule of law.
CGTN earlier spoke to Salman al-Ansari in Riyadh. He is the president of the Saudi American Public Relations Affairs Committee, a lobbying firm based in Washington. He says the report would not seriously damage ties, and he calls the document intelligence-based rather than evidence-based.
The report repeated words such as probably, suggests, and we assess. And the court system in the kingdom has said its last words by ruling with the death sentence for the 5 direct involved people in the heinous murder of Mr. Khashoggi, which then got a different ruling of 20 years prison sentences after the Khashoggi family pardoned them from being executed based on the practiced justice system in the kingdom. And based on my point of view, I think human rights politicization is not at the interest of anyone. Weaponizing human rights and other governments' mistakes is in this field to advance political agendas is a betrayal of the core concept of human rights.
Now we look back at how key events have unfolded since Jamal Khashoggi's death.
On October 2nd, 2018, Jamal Khashoggi visited the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, hoping to receive papers to marry his Turkish fiancée, Hatice Cengiz, but he never came back. For more than 2 weeks, Saudi Arabia consistently denied any knowledge of Khashoggi's fate, but in a change of tune on October 20th, the Saudi government confirmed that Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate. Following that statement, 18 Saudi nationals were arrested for their involvement, and 5 officials were sacked. A Saudi official attributed his death to a chokehold. But a later investigation concluded that Khashoggi was forcibly restrained after a struggle and given an injection of a drug which killed him. His body was then dismembered and taken outside consulate for disposal. It's never been found. 2 months after his death, UN Chief Antonio Guterres called for a credible investigation into Khashoggi's murder. On January 2019, the murder trial of 11 suspects began in Saudi Arabia. The Attorney General demanded the death penalty for 5 of the men. But in September 2020, a Saudi court overturned the death sentences on the 5 and jailed them for 20 years instead. A UN special rapporteur condemned the Saudi trial as theater. Meanwhile, Turkish authorities were continuing with their own investigation. In March 2020, the Istanbul chief prosecutor formally charged 20 Saudis with murder. But Riyadh rejected an extradition request, so Turkey put all 20 on trial in absentia last July. On October 20th, 2020, Khashoggi's fiancé Cengiz also filed a lawsuit in Washington, D.C. against Mohammed bin Salman and more than 24 top Saudi officials.
For more insight into that, let's cross live to Associate Professor Wang Jin in Xi'an. So, Professor, US President Joe Biden says he has told Saudi King Salman that Washington will announce significant changes in bilateral ties. How significant could that be?
The announcement or the statement that given by Joe Biden to King Salman by phone suggested that the United States want to readjust its Middle East policy and hope that the Saudi Arabia will make some changes. I think these changes are, to some extent, is very, very different or very, very salient, because I think the United States wants the Saudi Arabia to do two changes. On the one hand, is the foreign policy changes that the United States wants Saudi Arabia to withdraw from Yemen civil war, which was perceived by Washington that is a very, very major reason leads to so-called human rights crisis. Where on the other hand, that the United States want to Saudi Arabia to stop the persecution of the political descendants of Saudi, both at home and abroad. So Jamal Khashoggi's killing is a very, very important example and very, very important, important case that for United States that push it forward. So that change from United States hope that Saudi Arabia to make, I think will be very difficult, but that's one that the United States hope that could be realized. I know.
So, Professor, how important it is really for the United States? Because earlier we just reported specific U.S. measures against Saudi Arabia on this. 76 individuals has been put under visa restriction, and the U.S. Treasury Department basically sanctioned a senior intelligence official and an elite unit. But the Crown Prince himself is not targeted in this round of exchange. Why is that? Do you think it has put some kind of end to this drama, or the United States still has some measures afterwards?
I think that the Crown Prince himself was not on the list of direct sanction from Washington. Maybe have two reasons. On the one hand, there was still no direct proof that the United States can release or can put it out there to show that the Crown Prince himself should be responsible for the murder and should be responsible for the crisis. Because if we read the report, as we see that were too many probably to unlikely, such words, no direct proofs. Well, on the other hand, I think Joe Biden's administration still wants to keep the very positive ties with Saudi Arabia, although that Joe Biden maybe not agree with some of the policies from Riyadh in this region. But from the bigger landscape perspective, that the United States still want Riyadh still wants the support from the king himself and also from the Crown Prince, who is really responsible for the daily politics inside Saudi Arabia. So the geopolitics is important. United States has to balance the ties between geopolitics and some kind of the human rights aim of the political arena. I know.
Just as you mentioned, Professor, you said you've read this U.S. report, and basically it's intelligence-based. No hard evidence was presented in that report. So the key question is, why release it anyway? What's the national security agenda behind it? Do you think the CIA is pushing this move, or the new national security advisor is pushing this?
I think that both sides, and before this report, many sides, not just the intelligence the parties, not just the Congress, but also a lot of social groups, a lot of the media, they are trying to compete each other. Most of them or maybe every one of them have their own interests and concerns and have different, the interest backgrounds are, so they have to compete with each other to when to push, to release it and when to hide it. But this report came out this time, I think largely due to Joe Biden, his own or his Middle East policy team's philosophy, because they believe that some changes should be made in this region and some difference should be highlighted between them and the Donald Trump administration years ago. So that's why it came out this timing. But again, as I say, this is a very, very result of the intensified competitions of different groups inside the United States. But Joe Biden chose to publish it, but he hopes to limit the influence of the report. So that's why we see the words that he chose or the report that written, the way the reports are written, is hopes that to downgrade, not to damage fundamentally damage the ties between Washington and Riyadh.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Wang Jin in Xi'an.